Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Arnie Weissmann, Editor-in-Chief of Travel Weekly and Senior VP and Editorial Director of the Travel Group at Northstar.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Welcome to the Executive Roundtable on Tourism in a Time of Crisis. And we're very fortunate to have the following panelists with us. Christy Delafield, Senior Global Communications Officer of Mercy Corps. Jose Izquierdo, Executive Director of Puerto Rico Tourism. And John Yonce, Director of Community Advancement and Engagement for Tourism Cares. Welcome, everyone.
Yes. Thank you.
So to begin with, Jose, if you could give us just a quick status report on Puerto Rico and Puerto Rico tourism, in particular, right now. What is the state?
First of all, thank you. I think Puerto Ricans in general are extremely grateful for all the generosity and support that we've gotten over the past couple months. And we are rebuilding. We are positive. There's properties, the hotels are using this opportunity to remodel, rebuild. And that's the idea. After a crisis like this, revamping our product, improving and rebuilding, that's the most important thing. And we're seizing this opportunity, and the tourism world has been at the forefront of all of our relief efforts, and now they'll be a part of the recovery efforts. So we are extremely thankful for that. We're seeing progress at all levels. Old San Juan is back running. The cruise ship industry is strong. Of the 149 Puerto Rico tourism endorsed properties, we have 108 that are operational. The airport is fully operational as well. So we're planning a big comeback party, and we're hoping that it'll be in December. December 20th is a good date for that. So we're extremely encouraged that tourism will again be a driver of economic development for Puerto Rico because the people of Puerto Rico are extremely resilient. And I think those attributes of a destination, what's really at the core of a successful tourism destination, hospitality, generosity, those things cannot be washed away by a hurricane, and those are stronger than ever.
So 2 quick points of clarification. You mentioned San Juan. Is there tourism beyond San Juan or San Juan currently?
Yeah, we're encouraging people right now to focus on San Juan. San Juan, as you know, is a very resilient place. It's a mixture of the old and the new. It's a vibrant city, cobblestones. So San Juan is the focus. As a matter of fact, Lonely Planet just recently recognized Puerto Rico, San Juan specifically, as a top 10 city to travel in 2018. This was a recognition that was granted to us before the hurricane, but it still stands after the hurricane, and also in recognition of those attributes that I talked about earlier. So we're waiting for a stabilization across the island, and in the meantime, we're focusing on meaningful travel, traveling with a purpose, the idea of coming to Puerto Rico to help. So we have a consumer segmentation model ready to be deployed, and targeting those that are immediately able to travel to Puerto Rico. And right now, those are traveling with the purpose of helping us rebuild. And come December, we will again have demand-generating initiatives that will be able to impact the rest of the island. Obviously, this contingent on the inventory of the hotels being available as other tourism attractions continue to open up. But we're extremely encouraged with progress so far. And I think December is the date.
Okay, and we're going to get a little bit more into sort of the infrastructure around that. But first, I would like to ask Christy and John to, if you would, just give a 2-sentence summation of what it is your organization's mission is, and what you're doing in Puerto Rico, or Puerto Rico, and what your plans are for Puerto Rico. And Christy, let's begin.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mercy Corps is a global organization. We have 5,000 team members in 42 countries worldwide. Some of you may be familiar with our work in the refugee crisis. We've talked about it here at Phocuswright in years past. And we have some strong partners here, Expedia, TripAdvisor. But I think that the thing that's important to know about the work that we're doing in Puerto Rico is it really speaks to Mercy Corps' mission. We partner locally with community groups, trying to invest and bring the resources that we have from our global expertise to empower them and connect them to the resources they need to not just survive through this crisis, but to transform their communities, to build back better, to lay a solid foundation for a strong economic recovery.
And do you have a focus on tourism in particular when you look at a destination like Puerto Rico?
The work that we're doing is more sort of the economy broadly, but I think that, I'm on the road 50% of the time. I mean, more South Sudan and Iraq than Puerto Rico usually, but I think that anybody would say that there are strong linkages between the humanitarian work that Mercy Corps does and what the travel industry is doing.
Absolutely, thanks. And I'm going to disclose that I'm actually on the board of Tourism Cares before introducing John Yonce to talk a little bit about what Tourism Cares is doing.
Thank you, Arnie. Well, Tourism Cares is a nonprofit organization. We are a member organization spanning the U.S. travel industry. We have about 200 members, large and small, representing, again, all sectors. And our mission is to improve the travel industry's social responsibility. And we do that in many ways. But one key way we do that is by giving back to destinations after disaster, so responding, with a very special, particular focus on recovery, not relief, because there are some organizations doing awesome work in relief already. We don't need to do that. But what we can do is use travel and tourism's special powers to help a destination get back on its feet, maybe a little faster and also maybe a little stronger and more resilient. So we've, in recent months, we've raised about $300,000 from partners all over the industry. Think about destinations as diverse as Jordan and Haiti, actually giving back to destinations in need, which is very moving, and large corporations and small giving back through the industry. And we will be investing that across the Caribbean, South Florida, and the Texas Gulf Coast in, and again, workforce development, social enterprise, and building capacity for meaningful travel.
Okay. Now, we're at a tech conference, and Puerto Rico probably suffered as tremendous disruption in technology communications has happened on U.S. territory. How were you prepared? And how has the recovery on that come along?
Fortunately, we were prepared in the sense that Hurricane Irma gave us something of a dress rehearsal for Maria, the real storm that impacted us. So we had a destination recovery plan in place, a 90-day plan, and part of it was crisis communication and management. So we were able to outsource all sorts of communications, industry-specific communications to our New York representatives through our PR firm in New York, Ketchum. So that was a great opportunity for them to keep communications with OTAs and with the industry, with the corporations, and that gave sort of a continuity to what we're trying to do. So we had that communications in place, and it allowed us to pivot from the relief phase, where the tourism company was an emergency relief agency of sorts, placing people on humanitarian flights out of Puerto Rico, on cruise ships, that sort of stuff. And we now pivoted to the rebuilding phase. And in that rebuilding phase, when communications have stabilized, then at least we had that progress already made in terms of communication. But it was a challenge. We have to admit, we never expected a storm like this. But the idea is to mitigate the unprecedented impact by driving a promising comeback. And I think that's what we are working for. With help of organizations like Mercy and Tourism Care, we're on our way to doing it.
And when you mentioned, again, December 20th as sort of a date, an aspirational date for tourism to really kick in again, and we look at the audience here looks a lot at the infrastructure, supporting the infrastructure, filling hotel rooms, filling airplanes. My understanding is that airlift is a huge problem. Getting off the island in particular. Getting on is maybe a little easier at this point. But can travelers be assured that they'll be able to have the transportation, the accommodations, things like those needs?
It's the outbound portion of the flights from out of Puerto Rico that is a little bit complicated right now, because there is lower demand. There is lower demand to get to the destination. But if we continue to target the specific travelers that are ready to come to the island, we can drive up that demand. And in our plan, for example, we've contemplated the fact that Puerto Ricans abroad and the rest of the mainland are very active, and they want to come home. That's traveling with a purpose. They want to come home, revisit with friends and family, and help the rebuilding process. Airlines like, for example, JetBlue are dependent on VFR, visiting friends and relatives. So that coincides with Christmas season. In Puerto Rico, we have the longest Christmas season in the world. And trust me, folks, it's all the way up to February. And what better way than to celebrate the holidays than to come back to Puerto Rico and lend a helping hand. So that's what I mean by targeting those that are ready to come to the island. That will help drive demand up and normalize airline activities. But at least every single destination that's serviced by Puerto Rico remains there. And the airlines have shown great commitment. And in as much as demand goes up, then they'll be able to redeploy those planes back to Puerto Rico, which is our expectation.
Okay, and Christy, you've got a lot of experience coming into a country where everything has been disrupted. Never, though, I'm guessing, in the United States. Is this a first for the U.S.?
It's rare. Mercy Corps did respond in Houston with a small program. We responded after Katrina, after 9/11. But you're absolutely right. Normally, under most circumstances, the infrastructure of the United States is able to support. In this case, the scale of this disaster, the magnitude of it was enormous. 3.4 million people in Puerto Rico. Nearly everyone was impacted. But I want to come back to Jose's point, because I think that what people maybe don't realize is just how much ingenuity, how much passion, and how much energy the Puerto Rican people are bringing to this response. I mean, I had, an Uber driver that I was working with to get around from one place to another in San Juan, who's from the tourism industry, and he was immediately switching, like, I got a vehicle, I got a four-wheel drive vehicle, I can take you. He's like, I know these areas. People are being innovative, and that's what we need. That's what we need in a disaster, no matter where it is. We need to bring business groups together, community groups together, and Mercy Corps had the privilege in Puerto Rico to work with some really tremendously thoughtful and dedicated community groups. And even when we do bring assistance, there's a lot of times where, we'll bring a hot meal to a family's house, and they'll say, oh, this is really wonderful, thank you, but have you met my neighbors?
They need it.
They need it. Okay, so down the street, turn left, go here. There's an elderly couple, or there's a man who doesn't get around so well because he has this injury. The community has come together, and I think they're going to surprise you.
Yeah, I think so too.
So John, your focus is on the travel industry and helping the travel industry recover. And Jose, how many people are directly employed or indirectly?
82,000.
82,000. So many of those people, when their livelihood is going to be temporarily down. Mm-hmm. Does Tourism Cares address that, in addition to the broader picture?
Yes, indeed, absolutely. So we're working with our partners at the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association, who are doing fabulous work, and we're identifying priorities for needs across the Caribbean, and they will be investing in worker relocation for temporary relocating to another resort. Maybe they've lost their job at the resort because the resort's closed, so we can give them a fellowship to work at another resort, train up, and keep an income stream. And then when the resort's ready for them, they have newer and better skills, and they can come back and integrate right back in.
Yeah, I mean, I think within the travel industry, there's a lot of motivation to get things going again. And it seems like you mentioned the airlines sort of stepped up, and I've been following their relief efforts, which have been amazing. Relatively unsung. I mean, they've not made a big deal about it. Mm-hmm. The cruise industry is deeply involved with Puerto Rico. It's a major sort of hub and stop.
Incredibly so. And I just came back from the Florida Caribbean Cruise Association meeting. Just to give you an idea, hurricane was September 20th. Royal Caribbean resumed home port operations in Puerto Rico on October 7th. Between now and December 31st, we'll have approximately 50 home port ships from Puerto Rico and around 46 transit calls. And that is helpful to the economy. That is what we need right now. We need those visits, the meaningful travel. CHTA, which you just mentioned, is having its convention in Puerto Rico in January. FCCA, the cruise lines, are having their convention for 4 years in Puerto Rico. So that's why I say that the tourism industry has been fundamental at all stages: the relief, the rebuilding, the recovery, and what is undoubtedly going to be a process of revamping our product, making it better. There are benchmarks out there. You mentioned earlier other places that have been struck by crisis. Miami post-Andrew. We have New Orleans post-Katrina, where tourism is now the driver of economic development. And even the messaging and what kind of story do we want to tell? Think about Detroit post-financial crisis. It's the story of resurgence, and there is no stronger and more powerful story than that of resurgence, rebirth economically, and that's the one that Puerto Ricans are going to be able to tell and share with the world.
I mean, it is customary after disaster for a destination to say, if you want to help us, come visit, right?
Yeah.
But I think on the flip side, that one thing you might expect is that for someone to go to a place that has just been traumatized to the extent that Puerto Rico has, is there a sense of, if someone does come, they're going to be among a people who are grieving and in disorder? Or
the island's topography complicates things. Obviously, the mountain regions was much more impacted than San Juan, for example. So that's the importance of segmentation. That's why we want to identify who are those, the profile of the traveler that's ready to come to Puerto Rico. That's why we've identified the Puerto Ricans that are abroad, those NGOs and groups that are ready to come to the island and help. But come December, there will be space for leisure travelers. As the cruise ship industry continues to be a driver of that, as things continue to normalize in Puerto Rico, we will see a space for just your traditional traveler. They can enjoy our sandy beaches. Those are as pristine as ever. And our historic Old San Juan is as beautiful as ever. And there's a reason why it's a top 10 city in the world. I'm confident that it will continue to be because, as I said earlier, those are the attributes of a destination that truly allow continued progress in tourism, and those are unscathed.
So let's end with 3 URLs if people want to help. Where should they go and get information about that, John?
Come to www.tourismcares.org and you'll find everything right there.
Okay.
Everything tourism related, seepuertorico.com.
And www.mercycorps.org to join us in supporting a long-term recovery.
Okay. Thank you all very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Christy Delafield, Jose Izquierdo, and John Yonce.
It's good to have choices, whether they are big, small, or midsize. With Hertz Ultimate Choice, you choose the car you want to drive. Hertz Ultimate Choice.